plan was. The environmental study came back fine. The core drilling came back that there was some fill material, a little bit of garbage, and a lot of woody material down underneath. So I was going to add about our criteria developer estimated that it was going to add somewhere between what, $60,000 and $80,000, almost $100,000. I'm sorry, to the project. So we decided we would leave that site because there was a couple other issues there too. The building had to be crowded toward the road because of the culvert and the sewer line. The site would have been fine had we not run into these issues. Then we originally thought we would move up in front of the medical center, at which point it was there were zoning issues with the city, and it was obvious it was not the will of the neighbors there to have it there. So that site was not going to work either. Sir.
Hi, I'm Gary Coverley. Did I understand you to say that you spent on those two sites before and after the clinic $100,000?
No, sir. That was going to be the added cost to the foundation, or added cost to the project with the structural, the things they had to do to
removal, recompaction.
No, reinforce the foundation.
Reinforce the foundation. All the things that you guys could.
Then how much did you spend on those, just exploring those two sites?
About $16,000.
$16,000. Well, I grew up in the house right beside the clinic.
Right beside where, sir?
The clinic, where
Okay.
you were. And as a teenager, that was all overgrown. And as I mowed our lawn, I mowed a little bit more and more over onto that property that's now the clinic's. It was owned by the Mix there. They didn't care. And so I'm very familiar with that property. And I told Cindy, and I went out when I saw them drilling there in front of the clinic. I went over and talked with them, and I know that that was a huge ravine in front of the clinic that came down on the far side of the clinic, far side from the street, and continued down into the back of the clinic. In other words, I knew that that was all fill. And so all of that drilling was wasted. So my point here is that wherever you think that you would like to drill from this point forward, I urge you to go to whoever lived there a long time ago and explore. You need to do some homework. You need to explore that property, find out the history of it, and if they can tell you, as I could have if you had simply asked me.
Did you see any of the information in the paper, sir?
No, I don't
your
get
points
the
are
paper,
valid.
and you can't rely on the paper. You need to go to the property and check with the neighbors around there.
And that is a valid, that's a valid point. I have no issue with that being said. But we had a couple meetings beforehand, and it was then selected, we selected the site after that. And I have no problem with what you're saying. And moving forward, we will try to take a few extra precautions.
Please, thank you.
So, the rec center or the medical center property has been, it's no longer an option. Our other three options that we had immediately were, one being down behind the firehouse. Greg Smith had indicated that he would work with us, and when I say work with us, I'm sure it would be sale. We didn't get in that far with it, on some property right behind the firehouse. The other was property that we own here at the rec center. And the third, which is what we're going to talk the most about here this evening, is to partner with the college in the Waco Center. With that being said, I'm going to give my other two commissioners an opportunity to speak here. And we'll let you all know some of the pros, some of the cons. We've got Tommy Ratliff here from the college this evening. And definitely open for thoughts we're still wide open, wanting to bring this thing back. We just hit a little stumbling block. And hopefully it won't take long to rectify. So that being said, I'll turn this over to...
I just want to make one comment there about the first site at the Mini Hamilton. Like Ryan said, we did have 3 visions meetings, and we know everybody doesn't get the paper and everybody doesn't do the free press, and you're absolutely right, Mr. Cogler, we should have knocked on the doors that were directly right there. But however, I will, in the front of the building, that was to never have happened. When you saw the core drill show up there, we had already notified our architect December 21st not to do the front. We had already heard through the scuttle of what was going on. So that wasn't on us. That was a lapse in between that and Mr. Smith's service, land surveying. An email did not get through. Is that correct, Cindy? So that's why that was never on the table to go to the front. We didn't want to do that. But they did come up there. That's one thing I wanted to say there.
But have you had my information, the back of the building also?
Yes, I got a phone call from Mr. Burke after this incident, Bill Burke, and he had said the front is just as much fill as the back is. He was on the committee that built the the health center. Yes, and that was the only flat spot that was available there. That's why they chose to put the building there. But if somebody would have came forward before this, we wouldn't have done it. We could have avoided that. But yet it is back on us. We did not do our due diligence, and we've learned from that, and we will going forward. We've already spoken to a few neighbors down by the fire department. If it were to go there, what's your pleasure here? And so far it's all a go. Out here at the Waco, there's nobody really involved except the college to get any study there. Also about the 100-foot tower that was rumored around that had to go up there, it was never told there had to be a 100-foot tower that went to Mini Hamilton. There has to be some sort of antenna service to get from the Mini Hamilton or the health center to the 911 center to the tower. So it could have been just a house antenna. It could have been a 50-foot antenna. It could have been, anything. Nobody ever said a 100-foot tower, but that's what went around, that we were putting a 100-foot tower up there. So that wasn't quite true either. But we are working and hope, good turnout here, that you all continue to have faith in us, that we are trying to do what is right and give 15 jobs back to Gilmer County. Thank you.
Larry, if you want to take a minute, explain a little bit about the option of where we're pointed currently.
Well, again, like Brian and Darrell, would like to thank you all for taking the time. We're all busy. Thank you for coming tonight. And by coming, it makes our decision-making process easier, so that we, we'll do what's best for the community. And looking at these 3 options, and we put it on a graph, and we only have so much money, and that needs to be said. Your budget is $1 million.
Yeah.
So we're trying to build a 911 center without cutting the size of the building, still while trying to bring those jobs back to Gilmer County, while having that local service, people that are more in tune with our terrain and the hollows.
Our revenues to cover the debt service.
Revenues to cover the debt service. They are your phone fees, cell phone fees, so it only makes sense that we would want to bring it back here. So when we met last week, we had a work session, and we came up with these 3 alternatives. And one does appear to have more benefits, and that's why we'd like to hear your feelings on it tonight. There are a couple of issues that set these sites apart. Number one, if that 911 center would have been built at the medical center, there would have to have been a standing tower, and I think 100 feet.
We don't know what the size is.
But a tower.
A tower.
Because there has to be direct line of sight between the new emergency tower and the 911 tower. If you look at the fire department site and the rec center site, we're looking on the left-hand side of the road that goes to the pool. There's an area in there that could possibly be used. On those 2 sites, you don't have line of sight with that emergency tower. So it's pretty close to 100% chance that you would have to build a separate tower. Again, we don't have estimates yet because this is still all preliminary, but you would need a separate tower. In the Waco Center site, because of the elevation, and if you leave here tonight and you drive out Mineral Road, you can look down that hollow and you can see that emergency tower light flashing. So that's a benefit because cost is less. And can we just keep going?
Site preparation, parking lot, yes.
Site preparation, that was discussed.
Insurance.
In the case of in the vicinity of the firehouse and in the rec center site, part of the cost of this center is a driveway to it and a parking lot. And in the Pioneer Center, that cost would be much less because that driveway and parking lot would be there for college functions and their institutions. So the cost would be less. There was even a benefit when it came to utilities versus buying natural gas from Dominion or EQT at commercial prices, $9 to $10 a thousand cubic feet. At the Waco Center site, due to the fact that the college uses gas from their own wells, I believe it was quoted in the $4 a thousand cubic foot range. So that's a benefit in utilities. Also, insurance was a benefit. That's the things we'd like to discuss tonight, and I'm sure you're going to have questions. Benefits, you know, if we can lower the cost of this center by $300,000, then we don't have to cut the size of the center. And initially, these gentlemen wanted to build a 2,500 square foot.
3,000.
3,000.
And it went down to 25, and now there's
Now
1,700.
Yes. So we've all learned from building in the past, when you start cutting the size of your building, you just eliminate future growth. And they know more as far as the occupancy is more than just 911. It's
OEM, LEPC, and EMS board meetings would be there.
You can tell me.
Look, we want to team up and make, this could be just a 911 center, but we don't want it to be that. We want it to be teamed up as OEM and 911 because there's funds available, which we received the EMPG grant. I never get it correct, D, is that okay? That pays 50% of salary and 50% of the utilities. So that would take a big burden off the 911 center. So this individual that becomes a director, you would probably be full-time OEM director and part-time 911 director to fulfill the job, is how that goes. What else would you?
Well, it's just more than one tenant. That's why
Yeah,
you didn't want to cut the
OEM,
size.
the 911, and then your OEM, and then LEPC, which is Local Emergency Planning Council. Mrs. Thrasher, she's here, she's with that, and a couple others. The CERT team could meet there. The EMS board would meet there. The ham radios, there's a possibility they can play a part in this as well, because they're going to probably get a site on our tower, which we talked about before. If the 911 goes down, that's who you turn to first, is the ham radio operators. So there's more than just that entity going in the building. So that was another reason that we need this space to allow this to happen. And anybody that's worked with an emergency, I know the fire department's here, you have FEMA, you have National Guards, you have all of your elected officials that are at the table, your state government comes. You can't just put them in a little room. You saw what we had this summer when we were down there. So that's the reason to go in here, that would allow us to have these rooms at a cheaper cost.
So with all that being said, we're getting ready to open this up with you all on the floor. Please don't have it on your hearts or on your minds that any decision has already been made. That's why we're here tonight. You've heard the reasons why we're leaning the way we're leaning, but we're nothing more than the person that collects your all's voice and makes a decision on it. So with open hearts and open minds, I'm going to turn this over to you one at a time as you raise your hand. Please don't take this time to be negative. Who's first?
I was wondering, Darryl, is the 1,700 feet enough
Now,
to
It would be a Cracker Jack box. This 1,700 feet would take your IT room down to basically a closet. And we all know technology is growing every day. And that every time I toured one of the 911s, the first thing they said is your IT room needs to be big and your conference room.
You need either the 2,500 or this.
It's proposed 2721.
Is on this one. But our concept drawing that our architect did was 630, I believe, 2,500 square feet. Which, when we did the 3,000 square feet, that was just the one we sat around the table, talked about what we'd like to have, and they put it down on paper, and that's where we got the 3,000 square feet. Once we saw it, we realized we didn't need it, that we could come back down.
Okay, who else? Yes, ma'am.
What are you looking at as far as rent at the Pioneer Center? As far, I mean, are you going to have to rent the property? I mean, I'm sure you are, but
Right, it will be a rent payment. And as far as that goes, we don't have those figures yet. This is very preliminary. And obviously, that will be a huge factor in any decision being made. But you know, and the discussion, it's not very far in depth. And we've got meetings to come with Mr. Ratliff, Dr. Barr. So we don't really have those figures yet, and those figures are going to be, you know, they'll probably make or break the deal.
I guess we're back to what Mr. Coverly brought up initially. This is a site we're looking at. If there's some reason why we shouldn't be considering this site, period. Now, you know, we need to know that. So we're right back to what your suggestion was, Mr. Coverly. We're following up on that.
Who else? Yes, sir.
When you have your own private interest in 911, you would have to go into the rules or go into the 911.
Well, when that drawing gets to you, you'll see there'll be an entrance where you come in, and then you would turn to the right, and the 911 center will be completely separate. You'll step into it, yes.
It'll be secured just like the other building, and that is the law. You can't have it open to public. It has to have the key fob to get through.
They,
A lot of
They're
seconds.
just sharing
Hang on.
entrance.
Not there be either way.
Yeah, that can't happen.
The changing it to 2,700 square feet, is that just budget constraints? Going
Yeah.
down from 3,000?
yes.
It seems small.
Well, it is small, Dave. It is small. I mean, it's, you know,
What is the difference in cost between 2,700 square feet and 3,000?
I don't know that I have that for 27, but between 3,000 and 2,592, it was an estimated cost difference of,
about $100,000.
It was about-
$300 per square
It was
Yeah.
$300 a square foot.
right.
$300 a square foot is what they're charging to build a 911 center.
Yes, ma'am.
Brian, we didn't hear the answer to that question up there. We were wondering, is the land leased, rented?
Rented. Well, lease, I'm sorry. And it's a building, not land. But
No, it's just the land. And are you talking 100-year lease?
what land?
It's
The
the
land
build.
that the building's gonna go
You're not-
on if you put it at the college.
Did you see that? The building is in that Waco Center. It's not a separate building.
Oh, it's not.
No. Did you see those drawings?
Yeah, but I thought that was gonna be off to the end of that building.
No.
That's gonna be part of that.
It is on the end of the building. But it's in that building. No, it's not. Yes.
Does
Be with you just a
it
second.
exists now, right? They have this space that they can,
Tommy, you jump in here where you want on these questions about that.
are they gonna have to change their building in?
I guess the best way to explain it is you're looking at these drawings and respectfully keep in mind, some of you have not both drawings. If you've just got the one, it might be a little confusing.
Yeah, that's what I didn't understand.
Kind of got to compare the two. And let me show you why. This is this drawing that you see here, the bottom part of that, that's all shell space. And the building that's being built right now. The one that you see, all the steel that's up on the left-hand side, the right-hand side, that's all gymnasium. The left-hand side is the upper part of that building. You see splash rooms, office areas, and that's all finished. And that was scheduled to be finished. The downstairs was all scheduled from the very beginning of time to be a shell space till we find a medical provider and whoever else goes in there as tenants in that building. Even if we do the medical part ourselves down the road, if we don't find a medical provider, if we end up doing it in-house, then we've left that open so we can design it and build it out the way it needs to be completed. Just so happened that at this time, the space requirements and the need was that we needed to lay out a section of that for a 911 area to see if that can happen. That being the case, this blow up that you see of this space, you'll notice you'll see the same shared mechanical rooms and stuff that's right in the middle section of this building. This is just a blown up area of that space, which was shown, and this comes clear into the front entrance of the building. So that you have the public entrance coming in the front. There'll be an emergency exiting right on out the back that's secured, that's only used in, from the inside going out really for an emergency purpose going on out. We did not lay out this shell space area just for the simple fact we know what the requirement is. You was looking at 3,000. We had a preliminary estimate of 2,592. The number you see here of 2721 worked out architecturally. We can move this ball, we can drop that number to 2,000 square feet if that's what it comes back to. We can increase that number out to 4,000 square feet. It's whatever number we come to at the final end if we get that far along. Believe me when I tell you this happened in a matter of hours. This has not been something that once we found out that the other sites weren't necessarily working out, we tried to throw this thing together pretty quick to let everybody know we've got the space available. If we can fill it out and make it work, and we can make the numbers work for everybody, it's a way to put this together to make it come back to where we want to be. And it's advantageous for all of us if we get the center back, if that's what, the will everybody wants to do. So I think that's important to know. When you're looking at these two drawings, right now it's scheduled to be a gravel floor. So we put in there everything, and then we'll build it as soon as we go. But the rest of the building will be put up. So maybe that'll answer some of the questions as you're looking at these, and that kind of fills in the voice of what you're thinking about.
Dave.
Okay, I think, my opinion, I think the site is a good idea. But the question is, if the 911 is going to pay either rent or lease, are you all still going to borrow the money, put on the bond and everything? Because if the college is going to build it, then you're going to pay them rent or lease, then we should not have a bond.
And that has been discussed.
Right. And I think if that's the case, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
There's even the option, Dave, in the event, of course, a couple things need to be noted, and I don't know if they've been stated, but this, we felt 1,700 square feet is too small. That's like building a one-bedroom home for a family of 6. It's too small. So we didn't want to settle for anything less than 25. And the college knows up front, when this 25 to 2,700 square feet, that's exclusively for Gilmer County 911, OES, LEPC. It's not a sharing with the college or anything. That conference room in that center, that's for Gilmer County's emergency needs.
Right, but the thing is, if the reason people either lease or rent is because they don't want to build themselves. Like, a lot of places you see we build, then you lease. That's because you don't want to spend the money, to build it. So if the 911 is going to be paying a rent or a lease, then they should not spend any money for the construction.
Unless
the
one of
only
the
money you
options
spend is for the equipment.
Be $1 of investment on our part or $1 of rent until that thing ran out. That was an option.
Yeah.
That could be an option.
Otherwise,
But not double.
You're
not
double
charging.
charging.
No, absolutely.
that
So
was
the
never
only money in
discussed.
that case you should spend is for
Right,
equipment.
no, that wasn't discussed. If we decided to go ahead and go with the bonds, let's say, we only did 800,000 now, or because we didn't need the million, and we give that to BBL Carlton or whoever, that much, however much they charge for rent, $15, $20 square foot, whatever the going rate is, they would subtract that whatever dollar amount we give them and calculate that by years. So you may be 15 years, you never pay any rent, but we'd be paying the 911
So
bond.
in other words,
that-
you're
that-
still going to get the bond.
We don't know that.
We don't know yet.
We don't know that.
So the thing is, we're all sidetracked on something here that we haven't even had discussion with them about.
Okay, all right.
And what will happen here is opinions and things will be said when we leave here that were never meant to be said. There will be total transparency with this thing, just like there has been.
Yeah, I'm looking at it positive.
Yeah, and I don't have any problem with that. I'm just saying there'll be nothing hid. When the discussion is had between us and the college, it'll be transparent. It'll be brought to you all. These are the options. This is what they have laid out for us. They've said these are the deals. Which one do you all think? For us to think we can make this decision by ourselves would be foolish. And as I said before, there's no way that the voice of 100 can't be a lot better than a voice of 3. So everybody keep an open mind to this thing. And if somebody's got a better plan than what we're leaning toward right now, now's the time to say it. Or if you come up with something better in the next few days, get a hold of myself or one of the other commissioners or Cindy.
If there's another site, we need to be exploring.
Whatever. Nobody's got any concrete plans here. Nothing's set in stone. But right now, with the benefits that have been shown to us, this does seem like the way to be leaning and the way to be looking.
I agree.
Hands everywhere now.
Well,
Yeah.
this here rental lease, like, it won't affect anything with like white grants or something to do with the 911 center or something, that affect them?
You mean money?
Like if you're renting someplace or leasing like that, sometimes it'll affect you.
I don't believe it would, but for me to stand here and tell you absolutely not, I can't.
Right, but I've worked with the grant since I started. We've done stuff with the fire department, got you all a grant, we don't know nothing of that. So you can do that with the grant. We would be the facilitator of the grant.
Definitely would be something we need to look into. Yes, sir.
My hearing is not good.
Okay.
You may have already addressed this, and I just didn't hear it, but my concern is this is going to be on Mineral Road.
Correct.
Have you discussed the problems with Mineral Road? Because it is already overcrowded, it's narrow, there is a bad turn in it. It's very, very difficult with what's there now. Once this new complex goes in, it's going to be horrible. And what's going to happen then with this further addition?
And I have no problem with your concerns about Mineral Road. We've all got them. But I guess my answer to that would be the few employees that are there at this 911 center at a time. I don't really, I mean, the traffic on Mineral Road, how do you feel it's going to affect the 911 employees?
Well, you were talking about having meetings there of various groups. So that would be a number, I don't know how big a number of people going at one time.
Right.
It's not going to improve things.
Well, we're talking about 25 people or less.
Yeah, at LEPC, we're talking maybe 20 people.
But your concerns
Do
about
any
Mineral
of you
Road.
live on Mineral Road? Are you familiar with the traffic?
Oh, yeah, I work on Middle Road every day.
It's bad.
Yes, it is. I've been told, I don't know about you, Ron, but DOH is gonna come in and try and work on that road.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've all been told a lot of different things.
No, I know.
But you're also not talking about a meeting every single day.
No. I honestly myself, and I'm one of a bunch, several, but the fact of the traffic on Mineral Road and the effects of the 911 center being in this facility, it's not even a concern. I think we've got way bigger concerns than that. And I have lived on Mineral Road.
As bad as things are now, once this, you're calling it the Waco Center?
Yeah.
Once that is established and open, it's going to make things a lot worse on the road. So there are a number of possibilities. I think that I was talking about putting a road over the hill. We've heard that rumor. And then there's a possibility of opening up Walnut Street. So there are things that could be done. I just wondered if you would look into that.
Well, and once again, and don't take this the wrong way, but your concerns are with the Waco Center and not with the 911 center.
No, my concern is with Pearl Road and whether it's able to support not only the Waco Center, but also, I think it's going to be difficult with just the Waco Center, but it's going to make it even worse with this 911.
You understand that I'm saying, though, that the 911 center is not really going to add much traffic. I mean, a few cars a day. It's not a facility. People don't visit these facilities. You have a few people that work there every day, and then once a month we'll have a meeting there. So all I'm saying is the traffic generated by this 911 center being in that facility will be a drop in the bucket to what the Waco Center generates.
Mr. Cobley, if I could say, we've already discussed about parking no matter where we went. We were only asking for 7 to 10 spaces for the 911. That's all we were allotting no matter where we do build it. If it's over here at the rec center or if it's by the fire department, whatever, we're only needing 7 to 10 spaces.
Right.
Is all we're asking for.
Benefits, I'm assuming you have a spreadsheet that shows the benefits of the infrastructure that will be there, or creating an infrastructure if it goes over here or wherever.
Right.
It would seem that that would be saving an awful lot of money.
Well, for sure your exterior walls are there.
Pardon me?
I said, absolutely for sure that the exterior walls and they're already there.
I'm talking driveway, parking,
Right.
Okay.
sewer,
Totally.
gas.
I got it.
All
that-
utilities.
All that utility is huge.
Yes.
And it would seem as if if you decide to go to the Waco Center and do it there, that it would be maybe to look at adding a little more space there to begin with the money that you're saving on the infrastructure.
No matter what, and this, I know that I'm not reinventing the wheel here, but no matter what, the revenue's got to cover the debt service. And that is our main concern at this point, is money. Make no mistake. If everybody's concerned about everything, but it is definitely our concern about this. We are short, and that's all there is to it.
Because you're talking probably $200,000, $300,000 to build roads and parking and all that to any other site.
It's not even feasible at this time. I can look at all you all and tell you, the revenue will not cover the debt service. It will not. And we don't have enough. Gilmer County cannot afford for that not to happen. Yes, ma'am.
Brian, I don't know if I totally understand this, but if we put it, if we go ahead and do it with the college, will it ever be ours? Will it always be the college's?
Well, the equipment will be ours.
Okay, but the building, the office space and everything then will always be theirs and we always pay rent?
Sure, it'll be a lease, yes. But it'll always be theirs.
Okay.
What's delayed the opening of the 911?
What's that?
The building construction down now, how long will they get delayed?
Tentatively, in a previous conversation, I think it was said that the hope to kick that thing off, the building, December next. Don't look at me like that, Conrad.
Well,
I believe you said August.
the entire building is to be completed by January 1st of 14. So a year from now, the entire facility should be complete.
Okay.
When we talk about the 911 center area, I don't want to give you a final number because if you're 3 months from today before you get through your regulations and you sign it, I'm going to tell you, it'll be done in August, and then July 1, we get it signed. You can't build it in 2 months.
It ought to be safe to say that it could open when the rest of the building is complete.
But I assure you, it can be built faster there than it can be starting from scratch somewhere else, because a lot of work's already been completed right now as we speak. Whether this goes in there or not, a lot of that work's going to be completed, because we're going to generate the shell space. We're going to generate the parking lot, which will be done by August 15th when students come back. And that building will be operational on the upstairs for classes come fall semester. So I can tell you that that building area that you're looking at, that which we affectionately call Building A, Building B is the gymnasium area. And the gymnasium area is to be completed, before January 1, or substantial completion. You know, there may be little things that they're going through and touching up here and there that we find on a punch list, but it will be operational for that time.
Okay. Who else?
That was kind of my question. You had a target date, you still got to hire a director, an assistant, got to hire a dispatcher, you got to get all this training done. So, you know, I'm hoping that all that is still in the works to happen once you get that target date.
I don't think there's any doubt that it is. We're just trying not to put the cart before the horse and spend any more money than we have to, because I'm telling you that things are tight. Very tight. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Now, if you rent lease or what you're gonna call it off the college, can that be a major appearance and the upkeep and everything else out there? I mean, the center of these is responsible for the furniture and the office and stuff like that. You know, looks like, my opinion, we go ahead anyway, because somebody else will have to mow the grass, paint the parking lot, paint the outside of the building, or whatever.
Well, there's something to be said for a lot of that, and I used this example earlier today, and I don't understand how it all works, but you look at Dollar General came in out there, they're a corporation that can more than afford to build their own buildings, but they won't. They get investment groups to come in and build those buildings, and then they just lease, and at what point they're not happy anymore, they step out. So there's definitely benefits to this leasing, and I'm not trying to sell you all on this. I'm just saying it's where things seem to be pointed at this particular point anyway. It's the best option we have right now, because we cannot afford, people, to go over here on this bank, put all the infrastructure in, and build this center to the size that it needs to be. If I've said it once, I'll say it again. Revenue will not cover the debt service. And Gilmer County cannot afford to pick up the rest. Man.
When you originally, excuse me, started talking about this, you didn't have a site picked out. You just, you know, but you kind of knew what you wanted to do, and you picked a figure that you thought would cover everything. That's what you started looking at getting the bond for, right?
Correct.
And at that point, we talked and we said, you know, we think we can pull this off. We think we can do this.
Correct.
We'll have to kick a little in. Okay,
right.
So
we were wrong.
That was
just as we got into it, Dendra, we figured out that this thing's going to cost way more than what we originally thought. And nobody was trying to mislead anyone.
Well, as I hear you saying, you know, it's just not going to cover. It's not going to cover. It's like that's not what I was hearing at the other meeting.
Right. Well,
we can do this, and now it's.
We cannot do it for $1 million. We cannot go out here and build this thing, put all the infrastructure in, trunk lines, power lines, the road.
Where were you misled?
It wasn't misled. It was lack of knowledge is what it was. It was lack of knowledge about this whole process and prevailing wage.
Lack of knowledge of some of the regulations that go along with it.
Lack of knowledge of some of the regulations. Daryl, myself, Chester, Dave, whoever, I assure you no one tried to mislead anyone, and I'm standing here today telling you that it won't work. I mean, anybody that has any questions, for the money we thought it would work for, it won't work. Right there behind the medical center on that flat place, where there was very little to be done originally in our thinking before we realized, before the drilling was done, before the enviro studies, before any of that. It looked like it would work.
So are we already in on the bond stuff now? I mean,
No.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
This was just a thought when we were talking about it, and other people were talking about where to go and what to do and so on and so forth. Who actually owns the old Dollar General store? And could that even feasibly be thought of as an existing building to modify and become part of this?
I looked at that the other day. I didn't really go much further with it because of the way my thought on that was, and you guys can jump in on this, that thing's kind of gets like a moat, right?
Well, out behind in the
in a flood is all I'm saying, Jess. Like in a flood, doesn't it?
You can't get to it when it
Yeah, you
floods.
can get to it.
Well, if it's a true flood, you know, you're not going to get to this except from part of Mineral Road and down to out near Waco. It
Right.
closes off there too. In a major flood, in a
Right.
minor flood, no, you're still going to access it.
Okay. I looked at that building too.
Yeah, that was the only one I thought about that might be feasible as an existing structure. And maybe even there, an antenna wouldn't be quite as what is needed. And I'm not sure whether you could see it from there. It wouldn't be.
You don't have to be line of sight to the tower site. You don't have to see the tower site for the structure. For it to work.
So it's a possibility, and not that I'm against at the college, because I think that is probably, if this building wouldn't be feasible, would be a very good idea, way better than going and building, because I agree, I don't see any way that we could build for the amount of money that is available to do it.
Right.
However,
you're still going to add on to that. The guy is South Buchanan that owns that. There was never a lease discussed. It was just, finding out who had actually owned that. You're into the trunk lines with Frontier. Cindy's met with them in Charleston. That does not have that stuff out through there. Where this college is going to have the fiber optics or whatever it is.
Oh, sure, that
so we
would
don't
be
have
it.
that
That would be
cost.
it.
So that's another big cost with that building out there on Van Horn Drive.
Dave?
Okay, several points. Number one, having seen other 911 centers and being in communication field, you don't have to be in the line of sight.
Yeah, I heard that said.
That's number one. Number two, with the 400-some feet tower, you don't need such a big tower at the 911 center, no matter where it is in Glenville, to reach that tower. Okay, so that's one point. The other point, or question that I have is, since you say the money is very tight, have you taken steps right now to minimize any expense until the final decision is made? Are the people getting paid right now? Like the facilitator, is he getting paid?
Our criteria developer, which we took on at the beginning of this, half of his has been paid, $13,000. I'm sorry, $14,000. There was $1,000, and then a $13,000. Who will see us through this process, no matter where it goes. Trying to think of what other cost.
That's all.
There is no plan of any more outlay of money until a decision is made.
Okay. And my last question, do you know how much roughly your equipment is going to cost? Because if you go with the plan that's at the college and you're going to be paying rent, so the only money you would need is for equipment. Do you know how much that's going to be?
I know that $250,000 will cover it.
So if you get a bond, your bond would be that much.
Well, if I can.
Yeah,
with
sure
the radio equipment, we have several ways we can discuss that. Is not doing it by the bond, doing it through the lease, where technology changes every 5 years. So we really weren't sure we wanted to finance that in that bond, because you'd be paying on that for 15 years or whatever the bonds were, and your equipment you've already replaced twice. So that was discussed of possibly doing the 250. I believe Miller Communication is who contacted back. Eric Squires is our IT man, so with that 250 price. And then far as furnishings, we have some of the furnishings already at the OEM building, Susie, that we could incorporate and bring, such as the TVs, the radios, not the dispatching radios, but IRP radios or something. I'm not really up on all that stuff, but there are some stuff we already have. So it'd be kind of a smaller amount to furnish the building.
So basically you're saying that there would be no bond.
Well, we don't know if that's the way we choose to go.
I would like to see that. I don't know whether it's feasible or not. I'll be the first.
I think it's a good idea. I think the college, using the college, because they're going to take care of the building.
Everything.
They're going to take care of the building,
Insurance.
Good facility, everything.
Parking.
And then you pay lease or rent as you go. Makes everybody happy.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
What happened with the overall what happens with
Yeah. Well, there's been several fun conversations and a couple of meetings, but there's been no commitment of any funding. I don't think that, I can't speak for them. It has been indicated to me that things are very tight at the state level too. I know I was told last year that if it hadn't been for a visa settlement that, and I don't know this to be a fact, but it did come from Charleston, that some deal they had with Visa, and I forget, it was either $9 or $19 million, is what they used to balance that budget last year. So it was tight last year, and I know it's tighter this year than it was last year. So, you know, as far as a commitment of funding, we have none. We have a commitment of help. They're going to try and help us, and they're willing to talk to us at any point. They've both been very good to us. But just like Gilmer County, you can't get blood out of a turnip. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Brian, I have another question. In that building, Tommy, is there going to be some type of a backup generator?
We talked about that.
We have to have our own.
We have to have our own
911 center has
for
to
that
have its
center.
own.
Okay, I wondered about that.
Everything, Susan, that you have with ODM right now, that will be in that building. We discussed it when Tommy came for the 20 minutes we were rushed to try to do this, because Tommy called and said, you know, hey, I heard you can't do Mini Hamilton. I got a thought for you. What about here? So that's how that all started, was just,
No, I
hey
know.
there.
I was just
But when we
wondering.
sat down and talked a little bit, they talked about what did we think of sharing the conference room, sharing the bathroom. No, you cannot share anything. We'll share a lobby that you walk in, then that's it. You'll come to the security area, then you'll get into that area. If
Only
everything,
911
if the
people.
college decides to not put gas on it for 3 weeks on this end or electric, doesn't matter. We have our own gas, we have our own electric, plus all the backup is separate. The IT room is separate, it's not shared. We're a total entity in that building by itself. They just are housing us in it.
Anybody have anything further? I want to thank you all for coming this evening. We, just as soon as we get a little further along in the negotiations with the college, we'll do this again. We'll have more figures. We'll have numbers. We'll have these sorts of things. And come back. Come back. If you were interested enough to come this time, the next meeting will be far more interesting.
I'm curious to know here, the people that are here, is by a show of hands, is this something you think we need to continue to pursue is with the college at this point? That's the majority. Thank you.
Good.
That's-
All right. Thank you all very much.